Social media has been going crazy about the latest with Joe Biden appearing on camera. But something stands out. His hands, they seem to appear in front of the microphones like he's on a green screen.
Come on, man. You know the thing. Joe Biden. You know what I mean? Come on, man. Here's the deal. Don't worry. I know a lot of weed smokers. Corn pop for the fat dude.
What do you have to say regarding the allegations you used a green screen?
I got hairy legs.
What the hell is going on here?
I learned.
Do it, say it.
Come on, man.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the Vanguard.
That's not me. Oh, hey.
Now it is. For Spike, Moyle, Chemical Romance, Cohen, I am Matt Wright, and together we are traversing the muddied waters of freedom.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. If you are watching this, well, however you're watching this or listening to it, be sure to share it right now and like it, comment, do all the different things that give us the good chemicals.
Moyle, Chemical Romance.
The Moyle Chemical.
Moyle, Chemical Romance.
Moyle.
I legitimately thought up that one on my way home today. And I went, oh, well, I don't even know what's in the notes, but that's the one that's being used today.
A glimpse into the mind of Matt Wright. By the way, everyone, I'm at the beautiful Charlotte Douglas Airport. We are live. That's why we're live streaming at 7, because we wouldn't be able to do a show because my flight board's at 8:30.
Right. So we are going to have to pound through this one. But first, and pound through it. Pound through it like... Nope, not saying that one. Nope. First and foremost, I would like to thank the fine people at siestacava.com for the kava that I'm drinking on today's episode. Go to siestacava.com for your kava.
And allow me to thank wonderful roasted and salted pistachios, which is what I'm eating and why I can't wear a mask, because I'm eating. And it's okay. It's very safe. I'm eating. Bulavanaka.
Bulavanaka.
Right before doing a long show, let's eat some pistachios.
Today's episode is brought to you, of course, by the Libertarian Party Waffle House Caucus, the fastest growing waffle-based caucus in probably any party anywhere. Probably. And if you want to become a full-fledged voting member of the Libertarian Waffle House Caucus, all you have to do is go to muddiedwatersmedia.com/store and buy yourself either a Waffle House button or a Waffle House t-shirt, a Libertarian Party Waffle House Caucus t-shirt, and you will be a full-fledged voting member.
Voting member.
Voting member. This episode is also brought to you by Black Organic Coffee, the greatest cold brew coffee to ever be horrifically misspelled. That is blvckbrews.com. Use checkout code MW for free shipping. This episode also happens to be brought to you by the most aptly named sponsor of all time.
Yes. There it is.
There it is.
This guy's hand. There it is.
There it is.
Yep.
Mud water, the greatest coffee alternative on the market today that tastes pretty decent when you when you add it to with a little honey.
Yeah.
Go to muddiedwatersmedia.com/mud to start your wonderful, wonderful coffee alternative lifestyle today. This episode is also brought to you by the Gravy King. I did
There
not
it is,
check to see
Gravy
if these
King.
things were in the right area. By the
Yep.
Gravy King. And we are brought to you by Nug of Knowledge, the best CBD on the market. And the people at Nug of Knowledge use part of their profits to give money to fight the war on drugs and to also help. I should listen to Spike a little bit more when he's doing this part, but I believe it's to help veterans.
Veterans and the poor to be able to get the CBD products they so desperately need and cannot afford.
Yes. And brought to you by Joe Solosky for Pennsylvania governor. Joe Solosky is the key.
Yeah, I know it does that.
Yeah, just learned that. Is the key to Pennsylvania's success, as you can see right here. Key to Pennsylvania's success. And as always, this episode is brought to you by personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds, attorney at law. Did I miss anyone? I don't think I missed anyone.
Well, it's also brought to you by Henry McMaster, who is a bitch.
Yeah, but we're not streaming from
the,
South Carolina. It's
Hey,
weird.
folks, thanks so much for tuning in.
We're streaming from Florida, so it's weird for me to be like, Henry McMaster, he's a bitch. So it's just kind of like, eh.
Well, yeah, and I'm not even in South Carolina, so yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna skip. I mean, we've already just talked about him longer than we usually do, so.
Completely not on the notes, which I know you don't have in front of you because you are using your device to talk to me. But
Yes.
do you see who's
I'm
going?
also eating.
And
also
eating.
eating.
You are eating. Very important distinction.
Very important. I'm eating here, officer.
Did you see who's going for the South Carolina GOP leadership?
No, who?
L. Lynn Wood.
Oh, God.
Yeah. L. Lynn
That's
Wood
funny.
is going for
That's-
the head of the GOP, South Carolina GOP.
Does he live in South Carolina?
Apparently, I'm assuming.
Whoa, that's funny.
Yeah.
I will go there and laugh. If he becomes the head of the GOP, I will ask Sean Thornton, who is the head of the Libertarian Party, if he will briefly deputize me as chair of the SC Libertarian Party, so that I can invite L. Lynn Wood to a debate. And I'm sure there's a way to go, because he's easily goatable on Twitter, so we can probably get that set up pretty quickly.
Yeah. Somebody in the comments said, how is Mudwater not the most horrifically misspelled product name? It's because they are just missing letters. They are not replacing letters with other letters that make zero sense.
Correct.
Like,
That's correct. It's a good point, but it would be like if Mudwater was spelled MULWOLBZ2.
right. If they did MVDWTR, even that would be. Actually, that's still better because I mean VW.
It's still phonetic. Black with a V doesn't make any sense. There's no way to make a
No.
V sound like an A.
No. So that's why.
Speaking of black coffee,
Yes. I was like, how does that work? Speaking of black coffee, it is now time for the Cold Brew Black Organic Coffee Cold Brew Caffeinated Rapid Fire segment. Visit blackbrews.com, BLVCK brews.com, and use code MW for free shipping. Now- Speaking of Texas, Ted Cruz decided to take his chances at the border. possibly fearing he was going to get deported, possibly hoping. I don't know.
Possibly trying to get back to Cancun.
But he went to, yeah, trying to get to Cancun to escape the heat in Texas now.
Yeah.
But yeah, he went to the border to do his best AOC impression and actually went into the facilities for his camera op. And we actually have that video here.
Please respect. Please give dignity to the people. Please give dignity to the people.
So you work for the commissioner, your senior advisor. You were hired 2 weeks ago, and you're instructed to ask us to not have any pictures taken here.
Please respect the
because
people,
the political
rules.
leadership at DHS does not want the American people to know it.
Please respect the
You
rules,
keep
sir.
standing in front of the pictures, so
Please
you don't want the
respect the
pictures
rules.
taken. The rules are arbitrary, and
Please
they're
respect
designed
the
to
rules
keep
and
the
give
American
the
people
people
in the dark.
dignity and respect. That's all we ask.
Well, no,
dignity
it's
and
not.
respect.
You're asking, is this
Please-
dignity and respect? Look at
Please
these people.
give
There's
dignity
a
and respect
pandemic.
to the people.
Let me ask you, there's a
I
pandemic.
respectfully ask you, sir.
There is a pandemic.
With
Is this
full-hearted-
respecting the rights of these
full-heartedly, I
kids?
ask you, please
Are you
respect the
respecting the
people.
That didn't look very dignified.
That did not look very dignified. That did not look very dignified. And with her going around saying, just respect the rules, respect the people, looking at how they were being treated in that situation during a pandemic where everybody else is being told to stay 6 feet apart, 3 feet apart. I'm not even really sure anymore. The CDC seems to change it.
They aren't sure anymore.
Yeah.
They're also not sure
And
anymore.
3 feet apart, literally, like that's like one arm length away.
It's not socially distancing. If you're not staying 3 feet away from other people, then you're probably like a prick because no one wants you that close to them, for longer than a few seconds, and only then for an actual reason. Like 3 feet of social distancing is not social distancing. It's get out of people's faces.
Right.
But putting aside the fact that this is Ted Cruz, who is hyper partisan, and who when these types of things were happening under Donald Trump, he had
Crickets.
absolutely no problem with it. Would
Crickets.
explain all day long why it was great. That video, first of all, is that, I can't really tell, is that like, what is the plastic bags? What are those on the floor?
So it looks like the space blankets kind of things is what I was thinking. Let me pull that back up. No, not that one. That one.
Please respect. Please give dignity to the people. Please give dignity to the people.
Yeah, those are people lying on the floor underneath those blankets.
Those are people lying on the floor. Wow.
Yeah, those are people. Like I watched it a couple of times yesterday to try to get an idea of what was going on. But yes, those are people lying on the floor underneath what look like those space blanket kind of whatevers.
So during a pandemic, the Biden administration, the federal government, has migrants lying in enclosed areas on the floor. It looked like, now that I realized I was looking at people on the floor there, that's hundreds of people.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
That definitely aren't, forget 6 feet, they're not 3 feet, they're not 2 feet away from each other.
No,
And
they
we have to respect their dignity. What she's really saying is, please don't let the American people know that the Biden administration is apparently at least every bit as bad as the Trump administration is when it comes to how they treat migrants.
right. Yeah, you need to treat the president with dignity and respect, not the people that we have
Yes.
just lumped in here as though we are stacking bodies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, big shout out to Zodiac Killer there for letting us all know what's going on.
Thank you for letting us know what we already knew was happening, but
Right.
getting us video evidence that it is going on.
It's pretty cool. Thank you for that, Ted. That'll do, Ted.
Speaking of things that are going on because during a pandemic, New York State is launching their Excelsior Pass app, which is an app where vaccinated people can show their QR code in order to gain access into venues like Madison Square Garden or Walmart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Madison Square Garden, Walmart.
Or Walmart. So, hey, folks, remember when you were told that voter ID is bad because it makes it hard for people to be able to vote if they can't afford to get an ID? Imagine if someone said, oh, I don't know, you have to have a smartphone app to be able to go to Walmart Would that make things difficult for the poor?
Now, that's not only the only thing being, it's not only a smartphone app. Other things have been tossed out. And there is some people who are saying that putting an icon on people's driver's license or state IDs because, as according to Semarun Busser, the president and CEO of Appointment Scheduling and Booking Industry Association, that's about the only piece of authentic ID that we've got that's used relatively universally.
Oh, that's funny. How about that?
Yeah.
So they're not, that's with no sense of irony. Now, interestingly enough, folks, no less than the World Health Organization came out saying that they actually don't like the idea of vaccine passports, precisely because it's going to make things difficult for the poor and entire countries that don't have any vaccination yet and can't afford it. You'll basically be segregating entire countries of poor people to die because they can't interact with the outside world in any substantive way. But don't worry, you can feel comfortable going to Target to pick up whatever the hell you're getting for, well, it's not your kid, because you probably don't have any kids, but for your, for your nephew.
Right. Yeah, this whole thing about the vaccination passports, I am against them 100%. I don't want to be giving my personal medical information to just everybody who's saying that's saying I can't come into their store.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people are giving the argument that, oh, well, you have to give your vaccination records in order to go to school or in order to travel certain places. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not Walmart. That's not
Walmart.
That's not Publix.
Also, you don't have to prove you have a malaria vaccine to go to Indiana. You have to have a malaria vaccine to go to countries, a handful of countries where malaria is still common. So that would make sense. But for a widespread disease that we are increasingly finding out was not as deadly as they originally said it was, does not spread as easily as they originally said it did, and is still, yes, a very, very serious virus that we should take seriously, but is also endemic in every single country, to tell everyone that you have to get a smartphone app or have it stamped on your passport or whatever else to be able to go anywhere, but especially like you said, Walmart, school, or what about a shelter? What happens when you when it's a hurricane and you can't get to a hurricane shelter? They won't let you in because you don't have your smartphone app available. And maybe you got vaccinated, but your smartphone is dead and all the power's out, so you can't charge your phone. How are they even going to verify such a thing? And
You just gave Joel Osteen like his excuse next time around.
Yeah, sorry, folks. They didn't have their passports out. Listen, this, if you combined inject this into your veins or inject this into your body with let me see your papers, with you have to be able to afford a smartphone, with everyone needs to be able to see your medical records in this universal app that certainly won't be a security risk. Combine all of those things and you've got this vaccine passport idea. It is a terrible, terrible idea. And again, the World Health Organization has said that it is a terrible, terrible idea. And yet, guess who's going ahead with it? The people that will call you a science denier if you say that this is a bad idea.
Right. Now, in Florida here today, Governor DeSantis recently, he signed a executive order saying that there will be no vaccine passports allowed in the state, and that's whether it's. I'm half and half on it. Like if a private company wants to say you need to show me your vaccine passport to come in, fine, I'm okay with it. Do it, but. He said there will be you can't do it if you're a private business or if you're public.
So I would take that over you have to do it.
I would, yes.
And I do think that I do think that this is going to end up becoming a litmus test for red states and blue states, whether it's mandatory or not allowed, instead of just allowing individual businesses and organizations to decide for themselves. But I will also say this. I think that, and we see this with big tech, when you see something that is being done by an ostensibly private actor, but it's being done under the threat of liability if they don't, with massive amounts of government guidance on what they must and must not do in order to do it, it increasingly becomes some kind of weird gray area between wholly private and wholly public.
Right.
It is why, as libertarians, we reject the idea of government getting involved in these things in the first place. But since they haven't not gotten involved in it, and since we are having to deal with it, we do have to answer this very sticky question, which is, do we want Walmart and therefore more than likely most other major chain brands telling everyone they can't go in unless they download the, My Vaccine app? And I can tell you this also, what about people like, I don't know, people that have had adverse reactions to vaccines before and are advised by doctors not to get vaccines? What about people like me with autoimmune diseases who are concerned about the very real concerns of a brand new vaccine technology being used, the mRNA vaccine? Now, it may end up being perfectly safe. And, the very, very preliminary data has shown that there hasn't been any kind of increase in autoimmune activity for people with autoimmune diseases. But we're only a few months into this. And there are many, many perfectly understandable and valid reasons that someone would not want to get this thing. I'm not getting it. I am very much in the wait and see category, especially after I just spent the last year traveling across the country and was managed to be able to stay safe during all of that. So I think that it is a unnecessary, arbitrary requirement, and anytime you have these types of things happen, they always inevitably end up making things harder for those with the least. If you now cannot afford a passport or a smartphone, or if you now cannot afford an ID, because again, this was the whole reason why we didn't allow voter ID, people that can't afford IDs. Imagine a homeless person who doesn't have the means of proving their vaccination, whether or not they even got it, being unable to be able to actually prove it, not being allowed into a hurricane shelter.
Yeah. Or it was brought up. Or it was brought up in the comments, like homeless shelters or women's shelters. Like, imagine if you have a female who's at home, she's being abused, she wants to get out, she wants to go to a women's shelter, but the husband, the boyfriend, whatever, broke her phone, and they won't let her in,
or doesn't allow her to get the vaccine. Imagine if every abuser out there knew that the way that they could guarantee that their spouse will never leave them, or the person they're abusing will never leave them, is if they don't let them get a vaccine. This is a terrible, terrible idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to tweet that later, by the way.
Cool. Speaking of voter IDs, Governor Brian Kemp quickly signed a vast rewrite of Georgia's election rules into law Thursday, imposing voter ID requirements, limiting drop boxes, and allowing state takeovers of local elections after last year's close presidential race.
Surely there's no partisan reason behind. Is this the one where they said that you can't give water to people that are waiting in line?
It's not it's not in there exactly, but yes. The wording of it was weird. Like it doesn't actually say that, but it kind of makes it seem like it says that.
Yeah.
Like, it be? I think it's you're not required to bring them water, which people are saying this means you're not going to bring them water, and we're going to get a little bit more into this in our next segment. But
okay.
That was really the only reason I wanted to put it in here, is because this gets brought up a lot in our next segment. So I wanted people to know that this happened and it was being referenced. But
now, if you're one of the people that's concerned that the government won't give you water or won't allow others to give you water because the government is so racist that it wants to keep people from voting, this is definitely who you want to be in charge of deciding whether or not you go to Walmart, right?
And yeah, they're going to say, yeah, we're going to put in this icon on your ID so you can get into these places. You show your ID because, we all have them, but then they get mad about the voter ID law because not everybody can get IDs. Like, these are arguments happening the same week. The exact same week, these two arguments are going on. It's very similar to the people on the left saying, we need to we need to defund the police, which again, all for, and also only police should have guns.
Yep.
These two arguments are happening simultaneously
Simultaneously
by the
with
same
zero
people.
sense of irony.
Right.
Yes.
Not even a little bit. And I mean, that's just that this is the weird backwards ass world that we are living in.
Yes.
And speaking of
Brought to you by wonderful
pistachios,
roasted pistachios, which I'm eating. I'm at the airport.
and speaking of being nuts, Biden did a press conference last week,
Yes.
and I'm not gonna lie, I watched this press conference multiple times because that's what I do. I watched this press conference multiple times, and I was not 100% sure if we were going to do a segment on it. And then I decided that yes, we're going to do a segment on it.
Yes.
So everybody who was a big fan of the idea of tuning in to watch a good sundowning last week, they had the ample opportunity on Thursday as Joe Biden held his first press conference as president. And not surprisingly, the media treated Joe Biden slightly differently than Donald Trump.
Really?
Oh, I know. Weird, right? I can't believe they did not give him the same tough questions and just vitriolic responses. But yeah, they treat him a little bit differently. And at one point, when asked about whether or not Joe Biden was going to run again in 2024, 60-something days in, they said, at this point, your predecessor had already announced his reelection campaign. And he goes, my predecessor? Yeah, I miss that guy. One of the reporters who was there said the reason that so many people were coming to the border is because Joe is a moral and decent man. She said many of them
Did they see that video that Ted Cruz did?
hadn't come out yet. Yeah, came up and said, Joe Biden, a lot of people are coming to this nation because they believe that you are going to live up to your promises and that you are the moral and decent man, to which Joe equated to, I am the good guy or the nice guy, and they're coming because I'm the good guy, because I'm the nice guy, because it's yeah. No, he ran with that for like 4 minutes.
They're coming Wow. Because I'm the good guy. That's why I throw him in a cage, because I'm the good guy.
Because I'm the good guy. I'm the nice guy.
And the media took that answer uncritically and unquestioningly.
Didn't even say anything. Just said the issue is we got a lot of issues, and there are things that are happening, and we got things that we need to work on, but Congress and the things, and anyway, yeah, whatever, right.
A refreshing departure from the inarticulate days of the Trump presidency.
We are going to get really big into the inarticulate days of the Joe Biden presidency here. Now, on the subject of voting bills, like we just spoke about, people were saying that they were akin to the Jim Crow era. Now, here was Biden.
What I'm worried about is how un-American this whole initiative is. It's sick. It's sick. Deciding in some states that you cannot bring water to people standing in line, waiting to vote.
No, that was not all of it.
What I'm worried about is how un-American this whole initiative is. It's sick. It's sick.
I made the wrong video. In that video, what it's supposed to say is, this isn't like Jim Crow. This is bigger than Jim Crow. This is like Jim Eagle. This isn't Jim Crow. This is Jim Eagle.
Jim Eagle.
Jim Eagle.
But Jim Crow was a person.
Jim Crow was a person. But eagles are bigger than crows.
Sure.
The eagles are bigger than crows.
This isn't Jim Crow. This is
Jim Eagle.
Eagle.
And I am very sorry that that video did not work out. I should have checked it beforehand, but I had too much faith in myself.
If I were in Congress, I would have to create some kind of voting rights bill and desperately figure out an acronym that would make Jim Eagle.
Oh. Yes.
The Justice
in migrant
in equitable actions to grant legal voting eligibility. Voting, it's a soft V.
Yes. It's a black coffee V.
It's a black coffee V. Jim Eagle.
Right.
Eagle.
Now, after people were talking, like the Jim Crow thing's going to come up a lot. Just want to warn you all now. Comes up often. But
not with vaccine passports, which like
vaccine passports actually didn't come up.
Definitely could end up leading to some
Jim Crow like,
or at least Jim Pigeon.
Right. Jim Finch.
Jim Pheasant.
Jim Turkey. The filibuster was constantly being questioned with Biden, and he decided to talk about the abuse of the practice of the filibuster.
With regard to the filibuster, I believe we should go back to a position of the filibuster that existed just when I came to the United States Senate 120 years ago.
120 years ago.
Oh God.
And that is that it used to be required for the filibuster, and I had a card on this, so I was going to give you the statistics.
Why?
120 years ago.
Why are
How do
all of
you
my
accidentally
videos too
say-
short?
How do you accidentally say
120 years ago?
120 years ago, and then not immediately correct it?
I really hope not all these videos are too short. But what he says there is, he says when the filibuster first came in, between 19 something and 1971, motions to end the filibuster happened 58 times, but this practice is being abused today. Last year alone, I'm going to repeat that. Last year alone, it happened 5 times that amount. Last year alone, it happened 5 times that amount. Who was in power 1 year ago? Who was using the filibuster to stop the people in power?
There you go.
He knows that this is going to be, like, he knows that his party abused it, and now he's trying to stop somebody else from abusing it.
He said, "You can't trust them to filibuster. Look at what we did."
Look at what we did. Look what happened when we did that.
That is incredible.
In the same exchange, Biden said, Biden wanted to say how the filibuster had changed, and it's kind of like, man, I really hope this one plays all the way through. It's a lot like watching a drunk person tell you about their day.
And in order to do that, in a 50-50 Senate, we've got to get to the place where I get 50 votes so that the Vice President of the United States can break the tie, or I get 51 votes without her. And so I'm going to say something outrageous. I have never been...
I am so mad right now. I am so...
What did he say?
He says, we never get to the point where, like, nobody's going to say that I wasn't good at getting things done in the Senate. But sometimes when you have something that you care about and that's very near and dear to your heart, anyway, Chris.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, so he did a. Oh no.
He sundown, like there was like 3 back to back to back, and he just in the middle of his sentences. He just lost it. just completely gone.
That is like prototypical dementia, where in the middle of something you just kind of like, well, and kind of just you fade off because you don't remember, you don't just remember what we all have times where we're talking and we're like, man, I forgot my point. But this is where you forget what's even happening, and you just need a minute and you go, yeah, what's your question? Like, that's wow.
I think
That's
Outrageous. I have never been.
Nope.
In order to.
I don't know why all of those cut off early. That's neat.
neat.
That is neato right there.
Maybe the videos are sundowning.
Right. All of our videos are forgetting where they're supposed to end at the
Who
punchlines.
edited these videos? Jim Scarlet Macaw?
Luckily, I've seen them so many times, I know what they all say.
Right.
So later on, he was asked about the filibuster, and once again, something that was being compared to the Jim Crow era.
Quick, it's a quick question. Regarding the filibuster, at John Lewis's funeral, President Barack Obama said he believed the filibuster was a relic of the Jim Crow era. Do you agree?
Yes.
If not, why not abolish it if it's a relic of the Jim Crow era?
Now, that one was the whole thing. Now, what people seem to forget, and I'm going to apologize beforehand for the poor audio on this. This was the best copy I could find. But in 2005, when Barack Obama was a senator, he had a different tune, and he said this.
The people sent us here to be their voice. They understand that those voices can at times become loud and argumentative, but they also hope that we can disagree without being disagreeable. And at the end of the day, they expect both parties to work together to get the people's business.
That version of what Barack Obama said in 2005 is really a throwback relic to the Jim Crow era.
It really is. Now, he does go on to talk about why you don't want to get rid of the filibuster and why the filibuster is what protects the people out there who voted for the minority party. And he says, we need to keep this in here. It's very important. But now it's a throwback to the Jim Crow era, and we need to get rid of it.
Right, until the Republicans are in office again, in control of the Senate again, and then it is the protector of our democracy, and they'll be making memes, comparing it to Jesus or something like that. This is classic partisanship. This is Ted Cruz being outraged about the conditions on the border when he was one of the ones calling for a massive wall and indefinite detaining of migrants, who are coming in for asylum seeking and things like that. Like it's nonsense. But it's what we've come to expect. It's the partisan shell game.
I'm wondering, I'm willing to bet that in Joe Biden's 50 years in the Senate or whatever, I'm willing to bet that at some point he said why the filibuster was good and why we needed to keep the filibuster. And I know that we've talked about this a lot and how, if we would have asked Joe Biden about some of the things that he is running on today, even 5 years ago, he would have laughed and said these are terrible arguments. They're straw man arguments, because he was much more together back then, and he would have known what a straw man argument is. He would be able to he would have said that. But now these are the things he is running on, and he's like, no, I have cared about these things for most of my career, and the thing.
The thing.
The thing.
The thing. Oh no, I can't. I'm still eating.
Now, I don't know if this one's going to play the whole thing, and I hope it does. But finally, when it came toward the end of the press conference, second to the last question, the reporter stands up and he goes, I know that you haven't really had a chance to talk about what happened in Colorado or Atlanta, and we want to know if you are going to follow up on your campaign promises. Whether or not you are going to get rid of, or if you're going to enact gun control, even if it's just ghost gun legislation or background checks or whatever. Now, if this doesn't play all the way through, I will have to
I take on gun control Wondering if you've made a decision either about sending the manufacturer liability bill that you had promised on day one to Capitol Hill, or executive actions like going after ghost guns or giving money to cities and states to battle gun control.
All the above. It's a matter of timing. As you've all observed, successful presidents, better than me, have been successful in large part because they know how to time what they're doing. Order it. Decide and priority.
Decide and prioritize what it is that they want to do, which is why on Friday I'll be going to Pittsburgh to announce a massive bill that will help fix the infrastructure in this country that is needed so badly. We need to fix our roads and our bridges and get people back to work. Something along those lines. That was his answer to gun control.
Wow. So, but that, you know what? That was actually a legit politician answer there. He's basically saying, no. Because the timing would be that right after a shooting and demand of calls for action, that would be the time to strike, not the time to go to Pittsburgh to talk about infrastructure. So that was kind of a little bit of a signal there to people who voted for Joe Biden for common sense gun control. You're not going to get a lot of it.
You're not going to
get a lot of talk about it.
One of the things,
a lot of people on the right are going to go out and buy guns, but yeah, no, not so much.
One of the things I read was that he was considering a executive action on, and I'm not making this up, on mandatory background checks on ghost guns. I am not making that up. I cannot tell you where I read it, but I'm certain if you Google that, you will find it. But
which form number is what's the ATF form for ghost guns?
For ghost guns, yeah.
I'd like to get a ghost gun.
Can I please get a ghost gun?
Yes, I'd like to apply to get a ghost gun. Is it the 30 caliber clip, 30 clip, 200 per second clip? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that one.
That one. And I read that and I went, how do you get a background check for a ghost gun?
That's funny. It's a Casper the Friendly ghost gun.
Oh, well, yes, that makes perfect sense. I am so annoyed that those videos did not work out how they were supposed to.
I'm annoyed for you.
But do you know who always works out the way that he's supposed to?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds, attorney at law. If you are in the Florida area of the United States and you have any desire to need to call an attorney for whatever reason, to sue someone because you were personally injured, possibly by this episode, who knows? Personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds, attorney at law, is the person you should go to. ChrisReynoldsLaw.com.
Have you watched a podcast with incomplete video clips? And you too are entitled to compensation.
Oh crap, I forgot. This episode is actually brought to you by somebody else. Yes, this episode is brought to you by Megan Evans. Megan Evans, thank you so much for your PayPal donation.
Thank you, Megan Evans.
You are this week's official sponsor of the show.
You're a real one, Megan.
You're a real one, Megan.
Megan Evans.
So now is the point where we take your calls that you guys leave. We take your messages that you leave at anchor.fm/muddiedwaters, and we get to answer your questions live on the air. We're going to have to hurry through these because Spike has a hard out in 40 minutes. So
yeah.
Here is our first question from Zach Britt.
Hey y'all, it's great to be here yet again. My name is Zach Britt. I am the Libertarian Party of Mississippi Secretary, and I just had a question for you guys. I've seen a lot of people in the liberty movement denounce this idea of cancel culture, but I just wanted to beg the question: isn't cancel culture just another example of the free market at work? You know, if the baker doesn't have to bake the cake, then does the employer have to keep the actress who said something controversial employed? Or does the publisher have to keep publishing their racist books? I'd love to know what you guys think about the free market implications of the idea of cancel culture and how it could maybe be an extension of the doctrine of freedom of association. Thanks, guys.
So yeah, I mean, cancel culture in its strictest form would be an example of freedom of association. Now, we could dive into we could dive into the fact that a lot of this is being driven by corporate media. A lot of it is being driven by people that are only tangentially not associated with government. I mean, they have very deep ties with government. They're private to an extent, but I mean, I don't consider most corporate media to be private at this point. They're tied to massive crony corporations that have a vested interest in keeping people divided, and while they continue to sap billions and trillions of dollars from us. If you look at the fact that in the 2000s we saw these huge protests against crony corporations and their influence on government, both from the left and the right. We saw it from the Tea Party, the Occupy movement, and now what you're seeing is LGBT floats sponsored by Lehman Brothers and J.P. Morgan. And again, there's nothing wrong with LGBT floats or with banks promoting these things, but you see a shift away from actual accountability and looking at the people in power, and a shift towards much more of an identity based thing as opposed to a something based on power. Racism is bad, transphobia is bad, bigotry is bad. All of these things are very, very bad, and we should speak out against them. But when the Department of Defense will put out something condemning bigotry, and people are primarily focusing on whether someone said something on Twitter 10 years ago that was bigoted, rather than the fact that the Department of Defense right now is engaged in a racist and murderous campaign of wars and genocides across the planet, I think that we have an issue of priority. So, is cancel culture, for lack of a better word, is that an extension of the free market? Yeah, but so is the reaction to it. In the same way that we can say that you have the right to discriminate against someone, but they have a right to boycott you or cancel you or whatever. In the same token, you have the right to cancel whoever you want to, for even the most, in some cases, not all, but in some cases, the most trivial of reasons. But then other people can come and condemn your actions to that. Here's what I will say about cancel culture in general. We are increasingly seeing a situation whereby people are having their lives ruined because of things that they said sometimes many months or even years, sometimes as long as a decade or more in the past, which at that time was not considered offensive broadly, but now is considered offensive broadly. And more importantly, these people are not allowed to redeem themselves or atone for it. All they're allowed to do is say, I'm very, very, very sorry, and then still be canceled and still be told that they're irredeemable. This is original sin without the possibility for redemption. Yes. It is the condemnation without the ability to be able to get salvation. And I think that that's going to lead to bad things. So the short answer is, yeah, everyone involved is involved in free market association and disassociation, including the cancel culture people and including the people that are condemning the cancel culture people.
Yeah, I was going to say yes, it is free market for them to do it, but it is also free market for people to call them on it and to say, let's not go to see their movies. Let's not go to see Disney movies. Let's not go to see, cancel Disney Plus, whatever. That is free market as well. Mm-hmm. And it's completely fine. Yep. If you have something that you believe in, whether, it's part of the people who are canceling people for what they've said in the past, or even what they've said last week, and you say, no, you shouldn't be doing this, I'm not going to give you any more money. Both of those are free market interactions.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Disney choosing to cancel Gina Carano or Toronto,
Right.
is free market. That she said
Can do
something they didn't like, so they got rid of her.
Right.
People responding negatively to that is also free market. People responding negatively to people responding negatively is free market. People responding negatively to people responding negatively to people responding negatively, so on and so forth. All of these are free market, and I think we should focus more on, being able to argue over whether something's a good idea or not, as opposed to saying, well, I have a right to. Okay, well, so does everyone else. Too.
Right.
That's how I say it.
So our next
question. And also, burning your Nike shoes because Colin Kaepernick took a knee is also cancel culture.
Burning your Nike shoes because Lil Nozzle Tough is.
Oh God, yeah. This Lil Nas X thing is pure cancel culture. Yes.
Yes. Our next question is from Luke. Luke, I'm not even going to attempt that last name, man, because I'm going to mess it up.
Hey, Spike and Matt, this is Luke. I had a question. I was wondering where the Muddied Waters logo comes from. And maybe you've answered this in a previous podcast, but I'm not going to go listen to like 200 episodes to find out. I ask because my wife saw it and asked why I had a sweatshirt with Bondage Lady Liberty on it. So if you could explain Bondage Lady Liberty for me, that would be very helpful. Thanks, guys.
Well, Bondage Lady Liberty has a dungeon with a bat in it, and oh, you mean the logo? Oh, right. Sorry. Go ahead, Matt. You know more about the logo.
I was going to say the safe word Switzerland. So the logo was written by a longtime listener who was listening from like episode 1. And his name is Kevin Nelson. He's a really good friend of mine. And he was listening to our show one day and he drew something very similar to what this logo is now. And then he sent me a picture of it. Just sent me a text and he was like, yeah, I drew this while I was listening to your show. And I was like, that's awesome. I want to make that our official logo. And he said, really? That'd be awesome. Just tell people occasionally that I did it. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then he stopped doing graphic arts. So I didn't tell people about it for a long time. But no, Kevin is an amazing person. I don't know why he did that with the Statue of Liberty. America blinding liberty. Sure. I don't know. Like, yeah, make up your own thing. But
I took it as like the statism symbolized in the flag blinding liberty.
Yeah. That's how I've always taken it, but I don't know what he was thinking when he did it. I just knew I just really liked the logo when he drew it.
It's a cool logo.
Yeah. But yeah, Kevin Nelson, great dude, really good friend of mine. And honest, like he is one of the people, anytime we get new merch in, I just give it to him because it's his. He never charged me for it. So now I just give him, I give him stickers and patches and shirts and stuff if I have them. Our next question comes from Donald Anderson.
What's up, guys? Donald Anderson, Wisconsin. I just had an idea, and I was wondering why the Libertarian Party doesn't really kind of do this. I think we could start an account on Facebook, Twitter, all the social media platforms, just called Libertarian POTUS Candidate, and hand it off from candidate to candidate as each national election comes around. I think that this would really help the Libertarian Party not have to regrow its base every election. I think that that was part of the problem between 2016 and 2020. Is that it was difficult to have the same grow the same base that Gary Johnson had, and I was wondering what you guys' thoughts on that might be. Thanks.
Well, thank you for that. So it's an interesting concept. I'm certainly open to the idea of it. The one thing I will say is that one lesson that we learned from 2020 is that if you are going to run for president, you have to already have your team together, your website together, your branding together, your social media together. You need to actually be able to jump out of the gate running, especially since we pick our nominees in the end of May for some reason. So we're really giving people just over 5 months to run for office in any real substantive way. If you already have all of that in place, then it allows people that are running for the office to argue, well, I don't really need to do that because, you've got already all that ready for me once I win this nomination. And the problem with that is that we need to already see that the candidate has their ish together to be able to start running. And if they don't, then there's a good chance that they're not going to run very well. So I'm not necessarily against the idea of having, something like that. But I really think that we should be focusing more on demanding that the candidates already have all that together in the first damn place before they decide they want to run for the highest office in the damn country. Hypothetically.
Hypothetically. Yeah, I'm not really. I've said before.
I mean, for example, you should be, if you're at the top of the ticket, you should have a higher reach on social media than the bottom of the ticket does. Hypothetically.
You should probably have a higher reach than the podcast that the bottom of the ticket's on.
Hypothetically.
Yeah.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically, yeah, I feel like I can say this. If you're even the party itself, you should have a higher reach than the podcast that.
Hypothetically. So, hypothetically. I mean, listen, I've said this. Larry Sharp has said this. Many others have said this. If you want to run for the presidential nomination, in order for the delegates to even take you seriously, even look at you and sniff your way to begin with, you need to already have a fully developed team with a communications department, a financing department, a social media department, a media outreach department. You need to already have all that in place, and you need to demonstrate that you are adept in managing that team before you ever do it. You need to raise six figures before anyone even looks at you for the nomination. At minimum $100,000, I honestly say it should be more like $250,000. When you consider the fact that you're about to go up against people that have billions of dollars in funding, we need to be able to at least put millions together. Yeah. And it's going to be hard to do that if you've raised like 20 grand. And so you need to be able to raise more than that. You need to have all of your branding in place and all of your logos and stuff like that, so that we aren't waiting 2 months for have a logo and a website, hypothetically. And then also you need to be able to say that this is the only thing you are doing, and you don't have, a full-time job while you're running for the office of president, hypothetically.
Our next question comes from Alex from Virginia. It's terrifying because you never know which one you're getting.
Hello, Alex from Virginia, calling in on the personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds, attorney-at-law anchor call-in moment. I have a question today for the two of you, and lately there's been a lot of heat and clap back on really the global stage, and there's been a lot of arguments on social media, like there always are, but it seems more heated this time. And with temperatures and tensions rising, I want to know where you guys stand. Godzilla or King Kong? Thank you.
Oh, Godzilla.
Like,
are you King Kong?
Like, is it who do we want to win, or who do we think who do we think is going to win?
I would assume it would be who do we think would win.
Yeah, Godzilla.
Yeah, Godzilla.
Godzilla.
Godzilla has.
I want King Kong to win. I want King Kong to win.
King Kong to win, but he's not going to.
Because I really like Kong on Skull Island. I like that movie. I did not like any of the Godzilla movies that have come out.
No, the Godzilla movies are terrible.
Yeah, they're garbage.
I mean, the old ones are like cringingly good.
Yes,
but
like,
the new ones are cringingly bad.
All of them from like 1998 on are not good. In any way.
Matthew Broderick.
Yeah.
Pretending he's scared.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, Godzilla.
Yeah.
Godzilla.
Yeah, Godzilla would win, but the people's favorite is King Kong, of course.
Right.
But yeah, no, Godzilla's definitely gonna win.
Right. Now it's time for our last question from laser legend himself, Matthew Hicks.
Hey there, guy on left and Spike. This is Matt Hicks calling in on the personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds, attorney at law, anchor call-in moment. Dun dun dun. So I was listening to the news earlier, and murderer cop Derek Chauvin, his legal team is trying to argue that while he was busy choking a man to death, he was distracted by the bystanders watching and videotaping and begging him to stop choking the man to death, causing him to accidentally choke him to death harder. I'm having a hard time with this one. Help me out with it. Hashtag Laser Legend.
So I watched
Yeah.
opening day, the opening arguments. I watched those yesterday, and I did not see today anything that happened today. So I had no idea about this. If that is actually an argument that they are putting forth, like I knew what they were going to do. They were going to say he was on fentanyl and opiates. He was on fentanyl and opiates and methamphetamines, and he was acting erratically. And this isn't the first time that something like this has happened. He's had run-ins with the police before in the past, so it was regular behavior, and they knew that going in. And like I knew there are arguments, but if one of their arguments is Derek Chauvin got distracted by the people saying, please get off of his neck, you're choking him, can he breathe, can you check his pulse?
Yeah.
That is a weak argument.
That's a really, really bad. Their only shot that they have is what they always do, which is character assassination of the victim. If there's any drugs in their system, claiming that it's the drugs that killed them and not the, knee on the neck causing them to not be able to breathe,
right?
And all of that. I got distracted and oopsie daisy accidentally killed someone, and my distraction was from someone saying, "Hey, you're killing that guy." That's a bad argument. That's a terrible. If it were anyone but a police officer, I'd say this guy's gonna fry. Because it's a police officer, there's at least a 50-50 chance he's gonna walk.
Right.
And it's very sad. I hope he doesn't, and I'm hoping that justice happens here. But yeah, that's a terrible. What a bad argument.
That's a terrible argument. That's
terrible. I mean, honestly, you're arguing for a negligent homicide conviction there. Like if I accidentally kill someone and like legitimately accidentally kill someone, and I go, well, the reason I killed them was because I got distracted by someone saying, hey, you're killing them. That's not actually innocence.
No, I mean, legitimately, that is
kind of murder.
I mean, it's admitting to minimum manslaughter.
Yeah, that's still kind of manslaughter. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
or negligent homicide or something. That's still admitting to a criminal act that led to someone dying.
Right. So thank you, Laser Legend, and that concludes this week's personal injury attorney, Chris Reynolds, attorney at law, anchor column moment. Now remember, if you or your friends want to have your questions or comments or suggestions played live on the air, all you have to do is visit anchor.fm/muddiedwaters, where you can hit the message button and you can leave us messages that we will play live on the air. You can also, if you're so inclined, donate by hitting the donate button, and you have like 3 different options. I think it's like 99 cents, $2.99, and $9.99, or I don't know, something like that. And you can give us money so we can continue to bring you poorly produced shows. And if you give us a lot of money, we can bring you better produced shows.
Yes. Imagine having episodes where the full video clip is on there. Huh?
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That can be yours if you give us.
We got the exact amount of video clips that our money could buy.
Yes.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically. Oh, I miscalculated. I have between 10 and 15 minutes.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
So, Joe Biden, instead of answering the gun control question, he pivoted to infrastructure. So let's talk about what we know about the infrastructure bill that he said he was going to announce on Friday, but he was wrong because he wasn't going to be in Pittsburgh until Wednesday. i.e., tomorrow. So we only know it must not have been in his binder full of notes. Now, what we know, it's going to be roughly $3 trillion or more. And it's going to have an effort to improve the country's roads, bridges, water systems nationwide, all while pushing a green agenda. And we know that a second one, a follow up one that we don't know the cost of yet, is going to be coming in April. That's going to include spending on social welfare programs, addressing health care, child care, and other issues. So get ready, because he's going to try to push, I'm going to say 7 trillion in the next month to go through in spending. Now, this is expected to call for a major increase in domestic spending starting next fiscal year, targeting federal agencies that handle education, climate change, housing insecurity, and other longtime Democrat priorities, according to the top congressional aides. The upcoming infrastructure and budget proposals showcase Democrats' broader desire to rethink the role of the federal government over the course of his presidency. And Biden, in a recent announcement, teased the transformation, linking his philosophy to the massive anti-poverty campaign waged by Lyndon B. Johnson. Now, if we all remember the war on poverty that LBJ put forth, I believe it went kind of how the war on drugs did, and it increased the amount of people on poverty.
Yes, correct.
Now,
we would like to congratulate poverty
on winning the war
on poverty.
Right. Just like we like to congratulate drugs on winning the war on
and
drugs.
Terrorism for winning their wars as well, yeah.
And I'm not really sure what he's calling this, if this is a war on infrastructure, because that just doesn't sound great.
I would call it the war on potholes, because A, that sounds politically popular, and B, because it will lead to more potholes.
Now, the question is, how are we going to pay for this? Because it's $3 trillion, and we are already spending a lot more than what we have coming in.
Yes.
The answer is taxes.
Really?
Yeah. Now, God, I want to talk about the transportation tax or the travel tax, but they said today that that wasn't a real thing, but I just don't buy it.
They're saying it's not a real thing because that's the best way to kill this bill, is to let people know how it's going to be funded. Are they boarding? Okay, all right. I got to start heading over.
Okay.
I can't eat anymore, so now I got to put my mask on because I'm not eating anymore.
So
I've been eating this bag of pistachios for an hour. Here we go. Go ahead.
So, one of the ways that was proposed was the travel tax or the transportation tax, with Pete Buttigieg saying, I think that shows a lot of promise if we believe in that so-called user pays principle, the idea that part of how we pay for roads is you pay based on how much you drive. The gas tax used to be the obvious way to do it. It's not anymore. So a so-called vehicle miles travel tax or mileage tax, whatever you want to call it, could be the way to do it. And the reason that they're doing this is because there are so many more electric cars on the road and so many more hybrids on the road that they are saying, yes, this is the easiest way to do it. We're just going to have to know your mileage, which means they either they believe you when you say how many miles you've traveled in a year, or they are going to be tracking your car.
Yeah.
It's one of those two things, and it's not that they believe you.
Yeah. Well, remember, folks, when they said that if you buy a more energy efficient vehicle like a hybrid, that it would save you money, and that they would always make sure to tax the big gas guzzling corporations, and then instead now they're doing this. So this means that if you have your car, hybrid or otherwise, and you're an Uber driver, you're going to be paying more for infrastructure than the billionaire bigwig whose company is getting the contracts to build all this infrastructure.
Yes.
So this is 100% a regressive tax.
Yes.
Well, all taxes are regressive, but this one's not even pretending to be a progressive tax.
No, this one is going to hurt the middle class and the lower class more than anything else. Other things that they are proposing.
So.
Other things that they are proposing is taxing people who make more than $400,000 a year at a much higher rate, more than the 37.5%, I think, that they pay now. They are going to be pitching the idea of raising the corporate tax 33% from 21 to 28. And if you are a married couple and both of you make $200,000, get divorced now, because stay together. Just
get divorced.
Just get divorced. Stay together, because they are going to start potentially charging you as though you make $400,000 and charge you at that same rate that they were charging.
Yeah.
Now, no matter what, taxes are going up across the board, and they are going to sneak in things like the travel tax, even though they're saying they're not. And it's going to hurt the people who are in the middle class and lower middle class. It's going to hurt them badly. But they're going to say it's for them, it's better. They need to just, deal with it. And somebody said in the comments, and they're 100% right, yeah, the gas tax isn't bringing in as much money, but they aren't going to get rid of it. So the people who can't afford the electric cars and the hybrids are still paying more in the gas tax as well. So they are going to
And you're paying for the mileage.
And
too.
you're paying for the mileage.
Exactly.
So they're getting you twice. And these are the people who can't afford to upgrade to like the Tesla, or that's the only electric car I would ever buy. So they are actively going after the lower class and the middle class with this bill, because they don't have a choice. Yes, they're saying that they're only going after people making $400,000 or more, and that they're going to raise the corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%. However, it's the other stuff that they're going to have to include in order to be able to pay for it. That's the stuff that's going to hurt the lower and the middle class.
Yeah, this is what happens every time.
Yes.
Anytime the government says we're going to spend a whole bunch of money, $9 for donuts, it is going to be paid for by the people who have the least, because that's what they always do.
Right.
And it's funneled to those who have the most, the contractors. Hey, if you're poor, you don't have a contracting company. But if you're rich, you might. And this is how all of these work. Every major government spending push is a act of wealth confiscation from those who already are in a tough place, and handing it off to those who have the most. That's what they do every single time. And this transportation bill is no different. And the fact that they put that rat Buttigeig in charge of it demonstrates that neoliberalism is alive and well. Thankfully. Hey, we didn't do a thankfully on
Thankfully. Now, as everybody can see, Spike is getting ready to get on the plane. So tomorrow, Spike will be on Matt Kibbe at 4:30 Eastern.
Mm-hmm.
At 4:30 Eastern from 5:30. And then on My Fellow Americans tomorrow night, he has Lenny Jarrett.
Lenny Jarrett. Education reform Santa Lenny Jarrett, a fan favorite.
So be sure to tune in tomorrow night for Matt Kibbe at 4:30. Is that being aired live?
I don't know if that's live or pre-recorded. I don't know.
Oh, it's pre-taped. I could have opened that and found out. But be sure to tune in right here at Muddied Waters Media for Spike Cohen and Lenny Jarrett on My Fellow Americans. And this Thursday.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
I haven't left. I got to pull up my boarding pass.
I get it. And this Thursday, right here on Muddied Waters Media, it's the triumphant return of the Writer's Block on April 1st.
Yes, I will happily assist in the event of emergency.
And my very special guest on the first show back of the Writer's Block after a 1.5-year hiatus is the laser legend himself, Mr. Matthew Hicks.
Oh, that's going to be a fantastic episode.
It's going to be great. Now, that's going to be going on 8 o'clock Eastern on Thursday. So you have so much more Muddied Waters coming at you. There's going to be so much more happening. We've got a lot of good stuff happening, and we are glad that you all are here for all of it. So, Spike, if somebody were to be looking for us online, would that be possible?
Yes, it would be possible. We can go to Anchor. Are we 14? Are we 14 or 15? 14. We will go. You can go to anchor.fm/Muddied Waters to hear our dulcet, sweet sounding dulcet tones. And you can also tune into float.app/Muddied Wonders Media. And you can find this and every episode of Muddied Waters of Freedom and my show, which is called My Fellow Americans, by going to muddiedwatersmedia.com.
Thank you all for tuning in. We do appreciate it. We know it was a little bit rushed show, but obviously Spike has somewhere he needs to go. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to meet us right back here. Same muddied place, different muddied time. The old muddied time, the original muddied time. Next Tuesday, right here at Muddied Waters Media.
Folks, thanks so much for tuning in. And where we're going,
we don't need roads.
Social media has been going crazy about the latest with Joe Biden appearing on camera. But something stands out. His hands, they seem to appear in front of the microphones like he's on a green screen.
Come on, man. You know the thing. Joe Biden. You know what I mean? Come on, man. Here's the deal. Don't worry. I know a lot of weed smokers. Corn pop for the fat dude.
What do you have to say regarding the allegations you used a green screen?
I got hairy legs.
What the hell is going on here?
I learned.
Do it, say it.
Come on.